The silence surrounding Sudan is deafening. For years, we've watched this rich nation tear itself apart, locked in a brutal cycle of violence and never seemed to end. But imagine if the suffering stops and the conflict ends and the resources return to the people, if only these crucial solutions are implemented. First, we must install a system that rips corruption out by the roots and makes it impossible to profit from politics. Second, we must fundamentally change who owns the land. It must belong strictly to the people, not the government or the corporations. And third, we must abandon the ideological poison of nationalism and recognize that this crisis is the suffering of the Muslim world altogether. Let's look at how that actually works. Look closely at how global political and economic system operates today. And you will quickly see a devastating truth. Corruption is built on capitalism. You see, without corruption, the capitalist engine collapses. This is because capitalists rely on the resources of vulnerable nations like Sudan. That means they literally need a destabilized, unregulated, and unprincipled government. Or failing that, they need endless factions and militias willing to sell off the country. In the capitalist system, the government's prime concern was never the people. It was always the capitalist corporations. The profit or the capital is ultimate goal, and the value of human life is diminished. Stakeholders don't care about their suffering unless it directly threatens their own profit. Think about the boycotts of Gaza. They were highly effective because they immediately cut revenue flows and attacked the shareholders' money, putting pressure on Western governments. In contrast, Sudan is currently in a perfect position for global powers to keep profiting. There is an alternative framework, a system built to reap corruption out by the roots. The Islamic system views politics as a moral trust and a profound responsibility. Corruption might still appear, but it is always accounted for. It can never become the accepted way of life, the status quo. How does it stop the corruption? Firstly, it ensures that politicians are seen as servants of the people, not untouchable people of power. Bribery is absolutely forbidden and heavily punished. For example, the Prophet, peace be upon him, once sent a man to collect Zakah. When he returned, he separated the money, claiming some for himself as a present and gave the rest to the Prophet. The Prophet, peace be upon him, publicly reprimanded him, saying, why didn't he stay at the house of his father or the house of his mother and see whether he would be given gift or not? Look, the message is clear. The only reason he got the gift was his position. Those militias in Sudan taking bribery and weaponry as gifts from the foreign backers would be severely punished. Hence, the system ensures both the donor and the recipient are charged. And this serves a deterrent. Secondly, power cannot become entrenched. Long-term in office that breeds corruption are prevented. Governments, known as Walis, during the Rashidun era, were removed every 2 years. Even highly successful military figures could be removed without making a single mistake, purely to ensure unity and stability, preventing dependence on individuals rather than central authority. This happened when the great general Khalid bin Walid was removed by the second Caliph, Umar bin al-Khattab. When political and military figures cannot be bought and power is constantly delegated by the Khalifa, that means the army cannot be bought for foreign money, hence unable to make independent decisions. And finally, the people themselves, not some committee controlled by the politicians, hold leaders accountable. The people are obliged to account the ruler when he errs, just as the people accounted the Caliph Umar for taking one extra piece of clothing. The real reason of the conflict in Sudan is about resources. Sudan is immensely rich. It possesses gold, oil, natural gas, and various other resources, making it a target for ruthless exploitation. The cycle of conflict is deep-rooted precisely because of foreign interests in that land. Exploitation is made easy through the mismanagement of public resources and a total lack of regulation on foreign investments and exports. This vacuum allows governments and officials and external powers to make secret deals. The great tragedy is that the people themselves are often totally unaware of the fundamental rights in governing these resources. The irony is that in most modern democracies, the land is not truly owned by the people, even though they think they've moved beyond kingship. The government owns and manages the land, taxing the people on behalf of the true stakeholders, who are the powerful capitalist corporations and billionaires. It is essentially a new monarchy hiding behind the appearance of democracy. But now, imagine a system where the land is strictly, fundamentally in the hands of the people. In the Islamic system, any resources beneath the ground, gold, oil, gas, water, diamonds, and so forth, is the inheritance of the people. The government merely facilitates the use of these resources. It does not own them. This isn't just a theory. When the first Caliph Abu Bakr considered allowing a man to cultivate public land for himself, his Wazir Umar openly rejected the decision. Why? Because the ruler cannot sell people's land without the full consent of the people. That's why the man was not given the land. Furthermore, accountability is mandatory. The Majlis al-Ummah, which is simply a council for the people, is designed to hold any ruler or government official accountable. Operating independently, this council ensures that the leader cannot misuse public property and resources for personal benefits. It can also give recommendations on the use of public resources. The relationship between the government and the governed is clear. The government applies the rule for the welfare of the people, and the people obey, but only as long as the law is upheld. Crucially, the people are obliged to account the ruler when he makes a mistake. In Sudan, this imbalance in the social contract is why the government can do as it pleases, and the people suffer exploitation. We look at this crisis in Sudan and Gaza and feel disheartened because we view them through the limited lens of nation state. We treat these genocides as foreign problems that must be solved solely within the capacity of single nation. This mindset, nationalism, is what fractured the entire Muslim world. It's self-inflicting, delusional ideology that means people who share the same core values and beliefs are divided. This ideology breeds division and racial hatreds. Think of the devastating action of militias in Sudan, such as the RSF or Janjaweed, who murdered innocent Masalit Muslim men, women, and children. Why? Because they deem themselves superior for being Arabs and see it as their prerogative to kill non-Arabs. But the concept of Sudanese or Egyptian national identity was actually injected by foreign powers, specifically to divide and conquer. Historically, under the Khilafah, unity was the rule. If a region suffered, whether from man-made or natural disaster, it became the obligation of the entire government and the people of the wider Islamic body, the Ummah, to rush to aid. For instance, when the Amwaz plague struck Syria and Palestine, the Caliph ensured Muslims across the country sent immediate assistance. Let's look at the example of Salahuddin Ayyubi. When he liberated Jerusalem, his ethnic background was irrelevant. He was Kurdish, Yet he unified the armies from Egypt, Syria, and Iraq, despite the tribal differences, because he viewed the liberation as an Islamic obligation to his fellow Muslims, not a separate Arab problem. He unified the armies to reconquer Jerusalem and the unity of the Islamic world. This unity has been crippling Africa for the last 300 years. The solution is simple, but requires a complete shift in perspective. If these nations acted as one regional power instead of a fractured nation state, the conflicts and genocide could cease. This unification is the only real possibility for reclaiming their resources from foreign forces. Chad should not look at Sudan and see Sudanese problem. Egypt should not look at Palestine and see Palestinian problem. And we must understand that their suffering is the suffering of the whole. The struggle in Sudan isn't merely a civil war. It's a symptom of a global machine that needs instability to survive, reinforced by the ideological poison of nationalism. In order for Sudan to overcome this cycle of war, it must adopt the Islamic system, where accountability, resources, and human life are valued above profit.